managing change with your clients, with other stakeholders, people you need to get some buy-in and commitment from. Change isn't easy. Watson Wyatt and McKinsey are just two of several firms that periodically do update studies and say, well, how is change working? Because change management's been around for a while. I mean, I studied that way back when, you know, in my university days, which was a long time ago, and it's been around for a long time. It's kind of like communication skills and everything else. You know, we've all been to those courses. The reality, though, is it's still challenging. Many change initiatives do not achieve either partly or fully the goals they were trying to achieve. The number one reason for that is not for lack of a good business plan, is not for lack of a good rationale around the change. The problem is getting people on side, right? So you can manage things, you can manage product, but how do you convince people? I have 3 kids, and one's a teenager, one's almost a teenager. You know, the old, do we have to? I don't want to. Oh, you should. This will be good for you. Try it out. And maybe that's just a sort of a backhanded way of saying it's kind of instinctive. Now, our customers won't always tell us that. In fact, worst case scenario, they'll just go somewhere else, right? But in their minds, they're not necessarily jumping on the same bandwagon that we're excited about, or that we feel at least is necessary. All these assessment tests, and this is for all good sorts of reasons, promotion and everything else. And what I noticed is about 2/3 of everybody's profile suggests that if they had their choice, they just soon stick with status quo. In other words, they're not that excited about change. So that's the first thing. And sometimes people don't trust change. A lot of people, take Molson for example, hey, if we're successful, if the stock is up here doing it the old way, you know, why would we ever change? Is this just some new CEO's flavor of the month? Is this just some new pet program? And by the way, I've been through some of those in the past. I wasn't born yesterday, that type of thinking. Now, when I work with sales people and people like that, I often say, well, how do you sell? And they'll often talk about, well, I sell on the benefits, the advantages, the features, and that isn't always working for them. And in fact, what I'm going to suggest to you is the best way to sell change, if we want to call it that, is in fact not to sell at all. Okay, and I'll talk a little more about that as we go through it. Thirdly, you've got to deal with those downsides before people will ever listen to the upsides. They may superficially listen. They may be politically correct because they feel they need to for some reason in the meeting with you, but until you've managed their pain, they will never look at the gain. Again, until you've helped them with what they perceive as the pain of having to do this, I can never get excited about the gain. Right? And that's another fundamental aspect of trying to communicate and influence people around change. I often liken it to those folks that call us up at right around dinner time, those telemarketers. And I'm sure you get those. Right at 6 o'clock, you're just sitting down to supper or whatever, and someone says, oh, hello, Mr. Harris. I want to talk to you about an exciting new opportunity in long-distance saving or whatever it might be. And they're very quickly into their spiel on all the positives. But, again, what do we tend to do with those type of calls? We tend to hang up, right? So the more that you're pushing the positives, the more that I'm pushing you away. Little child, and a ninth to his youngest child. Can you see a problem in this will? What's the problem in this will? I'm sorry? Yeah, we don't know if they're boys or girls. Oh, I see. I see. That could affect it too. Gender differences could come into play. Very good.
Our young man here, he's out of the family as soon as his camera deal's gone. He's arguing that 2 isn't a ninth. It's better than a ninth of the thing.
Okay. Okay. Is there a lawyer in the room? Exactly.
So the point is that there's nothing else we could use other than just, I'm older, I'm stronger, the will says.
That's right. So power once used is lost. You felt he was open? Or it caused... Very good. Thank you, Paul. That's a huge benefit, and that's an absolute reality, what Paul is saying, and that is, it caused me to want to talk more. It caused me to want to talk more because now I know this guy's really listening, he's trying to understand me, and it makes me more open.
Matter of fact, he's done all the talking.
Well, that happens. At the beginning of level 3 conversations, you know what? As Jill said, that's exactly right. At the beginning of level 3 conversations, it's important for that other person to talk, and so all you're doing is listening. Some of you may have kids, and I know my youngest kid, she goes on and on with a story. You know, she talks forever. But I know it's important that I let her finish. I know it's important that I let her finish so that I don't want to short-circuit that conversation because then we're not going to have a good one. If you don't have a unionized environment, there's still rights. You know, employees will say, well, that's not my job. That's not my job. We're getting into a rights mentality, so then everyone tries to contract or clarify. Well, let's get your job descriptions clear, and we end up contracting with each other on the rights. Or you can focus on interest. Now, power, if used wisely, is good. Rights are important. You never want to violate the rights. And the last element of influencing is interest. Now, again, when I read your annual report, every second word talked about interest, which is logical. Because to some extent an association is an influence group. Every association is. Change. I get asked by a lot of organizations, can you come in and talk on change? Can you consult on change? Last week I was in Ottawa, and one of the big hospitals in Ottawa was expanding. They were adding a whole bunch of beds. It was very positive change. They weren't downsizing, they were expanding. And the executives were very excited. It would give a better status in the community, more technology, innovation. But a lot of employees didn't want to do it. A lot of employees are offside. And I know from all the work I do in organizational change, and I have a slide in there, I just skipped over it, but it basically says that at least 80% of all stakeholders are in mild to strong resistance. That's what he just talked to there. He talked to two. That seems logical. And then someone in the audience put up his hand, and we had a lot of long-term employees, 25, 30, 35-year seniority. Said, excuse me, sir, doesn't merger mean downsize? And he said, well, that's a very good question. So let me explain to you why we have to make this move. I really want to talk about, or what I perceive might be some of your concerns and how we can help. He said, first of all, I know some of you are worried about who's going to pay for this training and on whose time, because we didn't always pay for training. And he said, for this one, we're going to pay, it'll be on company time, and you can even tell us what's a good time for you. Secondly, you're probably worried that if you get paid and bonused on the quality of your work, and if there's going to be a learning curve with this new system, does that mean you'll be disadvantaged from a compensation point of view? Because, you know, you're going to be making more mistakes initially. That's a very valid concern. One thought we had, and we're open to other ideas, is at least for this year, we would remove that criteria from the performance appraisal system.
Go to level 3 listening.
Okay, that's a great question. Serge's question was, how do I get them to engage in the same type of level 3 listening that we're trying here? And here's how it works. If I do a good job with this model, I'll go 1, you know, they'll understand it. There's a little time in 2, I won't spend much there, but I want them eventually to be able to go up to 2. I'm going right through 2, I'm then going to go down and spend a lot of time in 3 and a lot of time in 4, right? Then I'm, a little time in 4, but a lot of time in 3. And then I'm going to ask them any questions. And my hope, Serge, and typically what happens is we'll then get into a discussion of level 3, box 3 and box 4. We end up having a big discussion on box 3 and box 4. And then what happens is, because you've been open to them and really spent a lot of time at 3 and 4, they will then say, tell me again, how's this new system supposed to work and when are we doing it, which is box 2 stuff.